Good afternoon or early evening to you, whichever you prefer. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here. It is now Thursday, the first day of August 2024. A lot going on with the tropics right now. The Eastern Pacific, very busy. The Atlantic Basin now starting to wake up. We've got Invest Area 97L that we're going to have to watch very closely. It could become Debby. That's the next name on the list in the Eastern Gulf of Mexico. And then what happens later, the next 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 days are going to be very interesting as we track this system, and that's heralding the beginning of the next 3 months, which could be very, very busy in the Atlantic Basin. So let's get started, show you what we got out there, what we know and what we don't know, and we'll try to fill in the blanks with everything else. So in the East Pacific, we'll start there first. Don't worry about this at all. Doesn't matter. This is Carlotta. It does matter, but it's not going to impact land, so that's great news there. It's going to head on out further into the Eastern Pacific. And then this next system is a shoe-in to develop as well, and it could probably be counted on, let's go out to the 7-day outlook here, 7-day outlook please, to also stay away from the Mexican coastline up here farther to the north. We don't have to worry about it, as the overall pattern is going to steer these systems out into the open Pacific. So that is great news, no concerns for our friends in Mexico. Of more concern is this, Invest Area 97L now, high chance of development. Wait till I show you the Vorticity shot. You can clearly see it now in the vicinity of where that red X is, and this is the future development area. And a pretty big paragraph there basically saying, look, we got a system coming. It's got a pretty good chance later down the road of developing. Could be a big rainmaker. I think that's all but a guarantee. And then beyond that, how strong does it get? Who does it impact? What kind of coastal effects are we going to have? Inland flooding, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have to try to figure that out, because this one is not cut and dry already with the tropical shenanigans now down there in the Southwest Atlantic and getting ready to move into the Eastern Gulf and maybe beyond. First of all, just real quick on Carlotta, again, we'll point out a few things. There's the sort of thumbnail track map, if you will, embedded on this page from Tropical Tidbits. Away it goes off to the west, all the ensembles, everything generally in great agreement here that Carlotta will not be a threat to the Mexican coastline. And I don't think we have another invest area just yet. Or maybe it is, and maybe it's 95E. Is this the one? Yeah, this one's way out in the open Pacific. They're not going to really do much. So that's good news there. We don't have to worry about that. So let's look at 97L. It has been designated earlier today. Some of the very earliest of model plots indicating a turn eventually into the Gulf of Mexico over here, which is very, very warm. So there's going to be a lot of energy for this system to work with, and we're going to have to track that very closely to see what happens. Right now it's tangled up over the Greater Antilles, and it's just going to be watching and waiting for right now, because it's not going to have a lot of water to work with. But unlike, let me bring me back on just for a second, unlike a hurricane that's already coming through that's very strong, that hits these islands and it really disrupts it, since this system is in its formative stages, it's not like this is going to be disrupted nearly as much as we would see with a well-developed hurricane. You understand? Because sort of this perfectly tuned engine of a powerful hurricane, once you mess that up, it's hard to get it back. But when they are just starting, the land interaction, you can't make weak what's already weak. It's already weak to begin with. So it's in its formative stages. So once it's clear of these land impediments, then it could begin to take off. And that's what we're going to have to watch for in the Southeast Gulf of Mexico. So Dylan Federico pointing out what I just showed you there. He's expecting Debby to form in the Eastern Gulf and track north into Florida by early next week. But where's that going to happen? And could it be more towards the west? Some of the model guidance suggesting that if we get later development and a stronger ridge, there's all these puzzle pieces, right? We don't know for sure. The spread is pretty large on this one. Even just looking at the earliest of the plots that are coming out, a pretty wide envelope there of solutions over the next several days. It's not a tightly clustered track envelope, as we like to call it. So a lot of people are going to have to watch this, especially as we approach the weekend and into early next week. So anywhere from the Big Bend certainly the west coast of Florida. Let's not forget Ian. You can have effects well away from the center, and I think this will have coastal impacts from the Big Bend south all the way down to the Keys, certainly. And then, of course, it's going to impact Cuba. It's leaving the Hispaniola area right now and eventually getting into the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Here's what it looks like on satellite imagery this afternoon, the animation. There's Carlotta in the eastern Pacific. This is our next system that's going to try to consolidate and eventually take off. And then here's our tropical wave 97L moving through the greater Antilles as the sun starts to set across the Atlantic Ocean today. And where will this end up? That's going to be a big question mark as we go forward. And the starting point, and this too is to me very important, tracking the vorticity center area, like where it's starting to consolidate. And we're seeing that now squarely over the island of Hispaniola, so the Dominican Republic and Haiti there combined. So as long as it is tangled up over this area, it's not going to organize very quickly. But again, it's already weak. It's trying to form. It's not your Ferrari or your Lamborghini coming along that gets a monkey wrench thrown into it, so to speak, and then it sort of wrecks it and it's hard to bring it back to its peak performance. This is already weak. So once it gets into a more favorable area clear of land over in this region, perhaps, we don't know exactly where it's going to end up, then we could see more organization with it, and it'll just depend on how the atmosphere is behaving, how much land interaction there might be with Florida, and then that can help to determine how strong this gets for those of you tracking intensity. But remember, it will definitely bring a lot of heavy rain. It's going to be a slow mover, so it's going to be hard to figure this one out. Meanwhile, by the way, that is what Carlotta looks like on its vorticity signature, and we're going to wait and see, does this eventually look like this over here? That's what I like to look for. This is the lower 5,000 feet in the atmosphere, the 850 millibar vorticity. To me, this is the skeleton of the system. And if it's there, then you build from that. At least that's how I look at things. Is that how they do it at the Hurricane Center? Some of the experts down there? I don't know. I've never asked them. But that's how I do it. All right? So a few things for you. This is from Mitch West. A lot of you probably follow Mitch on the Twitter there, and as well as his YouTube updates. And this is right. Take your vitamins. That's a great piece of advice, because this is the EPS, the Ensemble Prediction System ensembles, right? So this is all the different solutions kind of playing what if, and it is going to be a crazy several days to come, because this one is not going to be easy to figure out. Looking at the deterministic side of things, this is today's 12Z GFS. See it right up there. So it's initialized at 8 o'clock this morning, several hours ago. This is the 12Z, and this is what I want you to watch right down here. Well, let's highlight it in, let's use blue. That'll look better. There's our piece of energy right down here. GFS has done a pretty good job with this. The Euro is consistently taking this east of Florida, kind of like that, and it does not look like that is going to happen. So hats off to the GFS for doing well with this system, handling it so far. We'll see how it does going forward. Remember, though, this is the operational. This is not the ensemble. We're just looking at one operational main run of the GFS op as we call it. So let's watch that piece of energy go through the greater Antilles, and let's just back it up. You can clearly see that, and I can just mark it for you. Just watch right through here, and to me that is very important. The model is showing the energy, the seedling, whatever you want to call it, it's there, and it goes through battling land. Some of that land, of course, has mountains, but once it gets into the southeast Gulf, water temperatures are exceptionally warm, and our system is on the western side of the Bermuda Azores High sitting over here, really the Bermuda High right there. And how much this ridges west or pushes west, or if it slides more east, I mean, this is 66 hours, so it's basically 3 days out. And that's going to matter, because if it rides up much closer to Florida, it'll be a big rainmaker, very unsettled weather down there, that kind of thing, and it won't get to develop as much. But if this ridge of high pressure, this big bubble of air, is stronger, and it pushes it more to the west, well, it has more time over water, it has less land interaction, and all of that could lead to a stronger system. Nevertheless, verbatim, 3 days out, Sunday morning, possibly a tropical storm. It looks decent to me in the modeling here, sitting just west of Tampa and Sarasota, making landfall up in the Cedar Key area Sunday night. Boy, I know that area well. And then into the southwest Atlantic it goes, just about the time I'm supposed to return from my vacation. So this will be interesting. And as if it's to just troll me to death, ladies and gentlemen, I live right here, Wilmington, North Carolina. So this is Wednesday afternoon, 150 hours out, and just to take it out to 1 week's time, because why not? That's what it looks like, just kind of milling around there off the Carolina coast. Is that what's going to happen? That's the deterministic run. We don't know for sure, but we're going to have to watch this because the GFS has had all kinds of solutions. Some that came up, brought it back out, took it over this way. You know, others that have stalled around down here, and it's not going to be easy, put it that way. The Euro doesn't make it any easier on two accounts. One, it doesn't have as much of a defined system down here. That's the starting point. If we slide this out through time, come on, slide out through time, please. It doesn't show nearly as much of a reflection down at the surface, so to speak, not quite the surface, but the 5,000 foot level. I mean, you can kind of see it, right? I think you know what we're looking for. That's it right there. But that is a far cry from what we are seeing from the GFS. So this is going to be really, really interesting. Which model has the best handle on it? And just for reference points, that's 72 hours out on the Euro. Let's go back to 72 hours on the GFS. You get the framing to match up closely there. The GFS definitely much stronger, if that's a good way to put it, than the Euro. So you can clearly see the differences there. The Euro is like, big rainmaker, nothing more. GFS is much more amplified and energized with our system. So the Euro continues to take the system over Florida, big rainmaker. But here's what's interesting. It has a very similar setup as the GFS, generally getting it into the southwest. I mean, we're talking extreme southwest Atlantic here, off the Carolina coast, milling around over the next several days. In fact, if we take this out all the way to the 10-day time frame, I mean, that would just be a terrible flooding situation. We don't even want to think about it. We've seen it too many times in the Carolinas. So let's not worry about it now. Keep it in the back of your mind that that could be a scenario. Any kind of slow-moving system that's going to spend that much time over a general geographic region definitely can spell trouble. All right, so we're going to have to watch that very closely. And I thought this was interesting. My good friend and colleague, Mike Watkins, you guys might know him from some of our documentaries. This is important. From today's National Weather Service Miami, their area forecast discussion, don't get caught up in the overall hype. One run showing this, one run showing that, deterministic models, single frame, scary-looking hurricanes parked somewhere. Look at the bigger picture, and this is very important. He highlighted it here. Deterministic model solutions may shift further from run to run and should be taken with a grain of salt. We just need to remember this is in the evolutionary stages. It is just a little area of energy right now sitting over Hispaniola down there. Where this ends up, we've seen the different solutions from the deterministic that I just showed you. And, of course, this important tweet from Mitch. Yeah, there's a lot of potential outcomes, and we just don't know. We don't know how this one's going to play out. What we do know, and I think this is important also to point out, water temperatures, where it is now, and the general area that this could be headed, I'll just kind of highlight that, very warm compared to average and in reality. So this has a lot of energy to work with if land interaction is not a factor, and if the atmosphere cooperates, i.e. light shear, this thing could really ramp up, but it's got to get away from the land. And then I think regardless, we're going to be looking at a serious flood threat for somebody. We just don't know where. That's what's going to make this quite challenging. And as if that was not enough, you know, it is August 1st, so we need to be pointing out, making sure people stay on top of things from here on out. Tropical wave train getting very active. Africa itself loaded up. All kinds of energy. We're getting ready to set up what we call this African standing wave. We're at 200 millibars of the atmosphere. It's going to be very favorable for upward motion, or what we call favorable forcing. And the tropical waves over these next few weeks are going to be rolling off and into a very favorable environment, eventually void of all that dust and dry air, or at least a lot less of it. Also, another reminder, our friends from Quick Dam here, partnering with them for flood mitigation products at just a terrific company based out of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. They were communicating with me the other day talking about sandbags and how we need to get away from that. We think about plywood versus aluminum storm panels and polycarbonate, for example. Plywood is for building houses. Sand is to be on the beaches and to make concrete out of. Now we have a better solution. Technology has advanced. If you've seen the movie Twisters, they were literally talking about this polymer that can absorb a lot of water. That was the whole idea of that movie, was to try to slow down a tornado using a polymer to soak up water. Well, Quick Dams actually uses, I think, almost that same exact polymer to fight water with water. So don't forget, give our friends at Quick Dam a follow on Twitter, on social media, all across. Their YouTube channel is fantastic. These videos that they produce, very high-end, well-produced, because they have a great line of products at Home Depot, at Lowe's, other big box stores. Go to quickdams.com. I'll put a link in today's description. Very important as we get ready for hurricane season and just general flooding in your house. You just never know when that's going to happen, right? Absolutely. It's best to be prepared. So look, 20 years ago, we were getting ready, talking preparedness. We were preparing for what was going to be Hurricane Alex. The blog and whatnot begins here from our good friend Jesse Bass on August the 3rd. But we're up to August 1st now. I want to do this day by day, and I tried to match it as close to the time as I was putting this together for you, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, August 1st, 20 years ago. Alex was here. Watches and warnings were up, and it looked like it was going to be a threat to the North Carolina Outer Banks. And so Jesse and John and myself were going to be getting ready. Weren't sure exactly where we were going to go. We didn't have what we've got now. We did not have live video. We did not have the remote cams that we do now. We just had our very trusty Chevy Tahoe with all the instrumentation on it. We had John's truck. John was with the Storm Study project. And then Jesse actually had, I think, a Ford Explorer back then. And once we get to August 3rd, I'll start showing you Jesse's page there from his site, vastormphoto.com. Check it out now if you want to. I'll put a link in the description to that as well. I'm not hiding it, but this is going to be neat to show you as we run along here day by day on how we evolved towards the Alex mission. And then it was like, 10 days later that we would be in quite the historic Hurricane Charlie down in the Port Charlotte area that really set the Hurricane Landfall Project idea of remote cams. We can't be sitting out in Cat 4 hurricanes in an SUV. Not a good idea. And even your Cat 1s, Cat 2s, when there's a lot of surge involved, you can't do that as well either. And hey, might as well be in 20 places at once if you can. And we do just that right now with our remote camera project that really got its birth, its inception, just about 20 years ago today and the days following. All right? So a heck of a way to start off August 2024, right? We're going to have potentially Debby somewhere in the eastern Gulf menacing the southeast, and that's not hyperbolic at all. This is going to be a real pain in the neck. Make sure you're staying on top of it with everything else going on, all the other distractions in our lives. You got to focus on the weather every once in a while so that it does not sneak up on you and cause you unnecessary grief. And we got enough grief as it is already, right? You guys have a great rest of your Thursday. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I hope I teached you something, taught you something. Oh, and by the way, I forgot I have one more tab on here. If I did taught you something, teached you, whatever, subscribe to us. Come on, hook us up over there on YouTube. Most people watch our videos off of YouTube. That's been around since 2006, by the way. And we got a lot of good content on here, from the daily videos to different documentaries, playlists, and even some 360 videos. So check out our YouTube channel at HurricaneTrack on YouTube. All right, now I can sign off and bid you guys a great rest of your Thursday. I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.